Hi everyone, today I'm joined by Frank again to develop some games. We'll be building a Snake game, which is going to be slightly different than the original Snake, but we'll see how it goes. So, hi Frank.
Hello.
Do you want to explain what we're doing?
Yes, it's a question from my son. So he's 10 years old, and he starts to program with Scratch. Don't know if you used that before. It's this online tool where kids can learn to program. But he triggered me to build a snake-like game. He's playing this Slither.io game online with his friends. So yeah, if you can show it. It's Snake like we know it on mobile phone. If you're as old as me, then you had this very simple Snake, but here um, you have this online version where you can play together or against each other. So there are other snakes here in this game, which are all online players. And you will see that some of them are very experienced and they kill you instantly. um, so he wanted me to make a snake game for him. And of course, as a Java developer, then I want to use JavaFX and your library, of course. And I've set up this very simple basic project already. But I'm struggling a bit to what is the complex thing about this snake is that it's a list of elements. So you have this.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. So this
Yeah,
is the current
this
state, is
is
it?
the first
Yeah, this is the head of the
initial
snake.
state. This is the head. So
Yeah.
if you play longer in this game, um, then you gain lives or you gain points, and depending on the number of points, you get more elements. So we need to keep a list of these elements. And then the hard part, I guess, is when moving, that all the other parts have to
Mm.
get the location of the previous one, something like
Yep.
that.
Yep. Yeah, that's
So
what I was kind of thinking about in terms of
yeah, yeah,
just remember the previous position, then move there. Because
yeah.
when I normally build a snake game, it doesn't have any of the distinct elements. So it's basically exactly the same body element for every body part, which
Hmm.
makes it really easy. Just take the last bit and then put it in front of the queue,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
nothing changes because the rest of the body is already there.
It's
So
already
that
there.
simplifies it. But with
Yeah,
different images, that's going to be quite interesting.
yeah. So that's the challenge of my son. He wants to use emojis. So it's an emoji snake. um,
Yep, we might call it that actually, Emoji Snake.
yeah, yeah. And what you have
Uh,
here are already a lot of emojis that we just downloaded from, I don't know, Flat Icon or something like that. Just a free library, free website. And we have there some PNGs now we can
yep, I'm
use.
just going to move one of them and then start from
Hmm.
this one. I've moved it under assets and textures because that's where FXGL expects to find
Yep, yep,
images.
yep, clear.
So component,
So this was the first idea is that you have a skin
yeah,
component
yeah, I think
where
we
you
can
can
work with
keep a
that.
list of these images.
So, okay, where's the factory? This is the factory.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is new snake. I think we're going to separate snake head from snake bodies because
Yep.
they're two different entities. I'm just going to create another one. And if
Maybe
this
you can
becomes
see that I already moved from an older version of FXGL
yeah,
because from is deprecated.
yeah, we now take it directly inside this thing, which
Mhm.
makes it simpler. We just get rid of that. So this is body, this is head. I think for the body, we don't really need this component. So what I'm thinking is, if we have this component which has like not images but actual entities inside, so a list of
Mhm.
entities, body parts, so that each body gets created as an entity, and then we add that to this
Oh yeah,
list,
yeah,
and
yeah.
then we somehow memorize previous position and go from there. So snake head, I'm going to rename this to snake head component. We can just add it directly to this images. Well, each image is not an animation, right?
No,
it's just an image.
No. Yeah. So we don't need it anymore here.
Yeah. And what we're expecting is smile PNG. So smile PNG should do it.
And because you moved it to this resources directory, it's also already recognized here.
Because it's under assets textures, we can just directly type smile PNG and it will be found from there. Type is snake. I'm going to rename this to snake head, and then we're going to add one more snake
element.
Snake body. And this one is body, so these things go. This thing also
don't need the animation.
And we don't even need the bounding box, I don't think. So we can just do small PNG. So we've got two distinct entities and entity types. So let's spawn the first one and go from there. So this is input.
Yeah, we already have the snake there.
Okay. And
so
this
it should
is
become.
Okay, this is factory. Spawn snake head, and then in the center. And then we no longer need to add the component because it gets added in the factory.
Oh, and I see you'll need to rename the shark game factory because this is a copy of another experiment where it was with sharks, and now we have snakes.
Okay, yep, that will do. Snake game factory, everything else is fine for now. Add entity factory player. Okay, and then this thing left, right, up and down will control the player. Okay.
This is a really fun way of programming, by the way. I don't have to do anything.
Well, this is what pair programming is about. It's also about kind of looking out for mistakes and such.
Yeah.
Because when you're working on code, you can make some copy-paste, particularly copy-paste mistakes.
I'm very good at those.
Okay, so now here's the thing. If we start adding like body images, this is currently moving at 60 frames per second. This is not going to look as smooth because it's going to be super fast if we start moving the snake as in the original snake.
Yeah.
Because in the original snake we have like 10 frames per second maybe.
Yeah. And they moved in blocks, yes.
In blocks, yeah. I think the block. We'll start with block movement because that's simpler. In which case, this up and down is just going to translate by a very specific size, which is the size of this thing, 64 by 64. So that becomes just literally 64. And then because this needs to be done in update, because we don't control the snake per se, we just say which direction it moves to.
Yes.
So I think we need some kind of a direction thing, which at the start just points to the right. And then using this direction, we're going to translate snake. Direction multiplied by 64. Translate. Because if that direction is 1, 0, that's to the right, -1 is going to move to the left. And then if the y-axis is going to be different, then it's up and down movement. In which case, these things simply tell us which direction to move to. So up is going to be 0 minus 1, because in JavaFX it's the other way around.
Yep.
Down is plus 1. Left is minus 1, 0. And right is 1, 0. And then we need to slow it all the way down to, I don't know, maybe even 5 frames per second. I'll set it to 10 and we'll see. Even 10 is really fast.
Yes, fast, yes, indeed.
So let's do 5. Let's do 5 and let's spawn it at 0, 0, just to make sure that the entire game screen matches the grid-like movement.
Yep.
So if it's 64 by 64, shall we then multiply the width and height of the application to match that as well? Settings, we need 64 multiplied by something, like 15, for example.
50, yeah.
And this will be number of cells, essentially. So we're turning this into like a grid game, almost. Yeah, that's... Oops.
And it's gone.
Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't check anything for the hitting the bounce.
Yeah, we'll have to. That's really difficult to control.
Yes. Maybe you can just make the images smaller, even. That we can have smaller grids.
Yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense. So instead of 64, I'm going to resize it to 32.
Yeah.
Texture, this thing, 32, 32. So this is a slightly different loader. It will allow you to pass in the values to resize the image. In which case, this needs to be... Well, actually, that's fine.
It's still fine because it's...
64 is divisible by 32. We just need to move this by 32.
And then we should define this somewhere as a value.
Yeah, we really should. And then 10 ticks per second should be easier to control. Because the problem with 5 ticks per second, it's that many times that it's going to query the keyboard.
Yep.
Yeah, this is easier to control. Almost. Is this done on key? Let's do on key down. Maybe that will help. On key down is only called once per press. So maybe that will help a little bit. Yeah, I think that's much better, because the key down will be called once, and the other one was getting called multiple times, which is why it overridden. It's overridden some of our movement directions. So that's done. We don't need speed anymore. So that was the easy bit, actually, because it's just the head. We need now to figure out how to make these things go. I think we need a function called grow, first of all. So we can actually grow our snake.
Yeah, can add an element.
And then maybe add a sneaky developer key that will allow us to grow the snake without even playing the game, because we want to test this first. Player get component snake head component. and then grow. Right, so what does grow mean? It means we need to spawn the body entity, and then
initially it's at the same position. You could add one at the same position and then move the head a little bit, or add an element in the opposite direction.
yeah, we'll try with the same position first. So body, spawn. Let's statically import this. Spawn snake body, entity get position. So entity is this the head, because this component is attached to the head, and then we can do something with the body. It needs to go into this body parts list. Now during move, because this is just the spawn, so on update we also need to move the body parts. And how about we add a field called previous position, set property, pref position, and it's going to be this one at the start. We move, and then we reset this to this. So by the time we query it here, no, it needs to be before we translate. No, actually, we don't. That's fine. If we query it here, pref position, that will tell us about the previous position of that entity.
Yes. And because you already added before, we at least have one. Yes.
Yeah. So this is the current position. This is the old one from the last frame. And now we just need to go for body parts. Part.
Do you prefer an index like you do it now, or you could also do?
I think I need indices because I'm thinking of getting the previous body part and then setting.
Yeah.
So if this is previous part, then I-1, and then we need to start at
1.
Yes. If we add the head to here as well, entity. Okay, so this thing also contains the head, body, and then so on. And then we set position of the part to the previous part's position. I think that's logically what should happen, right?
That seems logical, yes.
And then we're going to go to the very end of the list. And that's going to be the last element, and that's going to be set, whose position will be set to the previous position, I think. So that's... No, not position. We need to get previous position. So it's previous part get one of the properties that we will eventually set, which is this thing.
Yes.
And then we can set that here. How do I convert this to? Let's do it that way. And then we need to somehow remember.
So this set property, you can just put in anything you want in there.
Yeah. And I think that's what we need to do over here, because that will only set for the head. In fact, this will no longer be needed because we can do it here. Can we? Okay, I'm confused now. So
That was exactly the problem I had when I was doing some experiments with this, is using loops to go through lists and then remember stuff from the previous one. It's always very confusing.
when you have a one-to-one mapping between the element and inside the loop, the index, it works just fine. But when you have to kind of remember the previous bits, that's when it gets getting tricky. Starts getting tricky. Well, the easiest way is to just run and test it.
Yeah.
Let's try. Let's see what happens. Hopefully it doesn't blow up. So press F.
Wow.
Well, it's doing something. Let's do it another. Okay, there we go. I created more, but I can't see them.
But you don't see it, no.
I think that's because we're adding, using the head's previous position when we grow. Yeah, so this is incorrect. This needs to be set to the last item in here.
From the list, yes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think that will work. So last body part, get, well, I suppose size -1, right?
Yes, indeed.
I was thinking of kind of almost like queue-like operation, get last, but Java doesn't have that. Kotlin does have that, I think. So with Kotlin, it's a bit easier when we're working with collections. Last body part, get position. Okay, let's try that. And because of this thing, because the body parts also contains the head, I think it'll just work. Two. Yep. Still doesn't. We don't have the third item yet.
What did we do wrong? This on added, when is it called? The initial first time?
It's only called once, and it's only called
once
when this component is added to the entity.
Okay, and when we add an element,
I'll just get rid of those because we don't use them.
Yeah, indeed.
So we add that.
By the way, do you use the Save Actions plugin in IntelliJ?
I don't know what that is actually.
Because the thing you just did with cleaning up the imports, for instance, the Save Actions plugin in IntelliJ will help you with that. It can do this all automatically.
Ah, nice.
And it will even reorder your imports and stuff like that. So that's one I install by default in IntelliJ.
Yeah, that's one of the things. I kind of disabled almost every single plugin because in my view, plugins slow down the ID. I don't know if that's true or not. But
I don't think so. Yeah, not from my experience, but
which is why one of the reasons why I don't run Ultimate IntelliJ as well.
Yeah,
because it's got lots of things bundled together. But I got to check it out. If it does it automatically, then that's fair enough. Right, so this thing gets moved. This is the head, which gets moved. Then we go through the body parts, and then we set their position to the previous position of the body parts. So the very first one will be the head.
Yes.
We use its previous position and set to the current part, and then we remember that previous position for that part. And then this just goes for the next one.
Isn't the problem that when you add one, when you add an element, that we there put it on the position of the last one? So they are, I think, 2 and 3 are stacked on top of each other.
Oh, maybe. Potentially. Well, they're definitely stacked. because they are being added. We just don't see them, which means they're stacked somehow.
Yeah. So either it's the folders here or when they are created.
I wonder if this needs to be set here or before the loop.
Doesn't this also need to be set in the loop for each?
Yeah, well,
No.
this is what it does it for each body part.
There it is. Yeah.
Yeah, but for this one, for the head, we moved it, and then, well, we're using the previous position here, so it can't be set before it. It has to be afterwards. So I think the loop is fine. Tentatively, I'm going to say that it's fine. Let's have a look here. So we get the last body part, and we use... Shouldn't we be using the previous position of the body part?
Yeah.
Does that make any difference?
That makes sense. Yes.
So position, last body part, get object, press pause, and this should be pointy D.
Position.
And then we spawn, and then we add. Let's try that. Nope, still doesn't work. It's interesting that we can get up to 2. And
yes.
It works perfectly with 2. Like, that's how the entire thing should behave. We just need to... So the loop thing or something is working.
What are we missing?
I think you're right in terms of they're being stacked. Because if they're stacked and if they move in exactly the same way, then yeah, we won't see them. So
maybe we can add a logging or a breakpoint to see how they are created.
I'm just trying to figure out logically where we should put the very...
I'm a log programmer. I love to see output.
Shall we do it inside the loop? And then... Well, actually, inside the loop, it's going to just completely destroy our logging. So let's add another method. And we'll just do it on key press. Log. So body parts for each. What do we want to know? We want to know
their position
and their previous position.
Yeah.
Nope. Get object. It's saying it doesn't know what type it is, but it doesn't matter because it has toString method.
Okay.
That was very interesting. I suppose because it's overloaded. That's why it was complaining, because it didn't know which function to call. So if I press G, then we're going to log. I'm going to add 3, or to have 3, 1. So we have 4 now. And if I press G and pause the game for a sec.
How did you do that?
Do what?
The pause. The pause.
Escape.
Okay.
By default, the game menu is enabled. But I don't think we want the menu in here, I suppose.
That. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So the first one is the position. The second one is the previous position.
So they're all the same.
Yeah, so these ones are all the same, which is why we don't see them. So they are indeed stacked.
But why is the previous position of the head also the same? So your first 2 lines or the position of the head,
Yep.
and its previous position. So that doesn't really make sense.
So this is where we move. I wonder if then that should be set before we set the position.
Before the loop, before. Ah, yeah. Now you remember your position as the first thing, then you move.
And then we changed it. And then we changed
Yeah.
it, yeah. So in which case this should also happen in the same order.
Yeah.
Okay, let's try that. Set property, and then we... Yay!
Hmm. Yep, this is looking like a snake.
Yep, there's no collision, but it looks like a snake. And it's even controllable, almost. I'm not good with the reactions, but it's controllable. So what's next? We need to move the emojis, right?
Yeah, let's pick random emojis for the body parts, maybe?
Yeah.
Can
Well, the good news is we've done the hardest part, I think, because that should be reasonably straightforward.
Yes.
We don't need emojis directory anymore.
Nope, indeed.
And do you have all of them somewhere in a list or something?
Not yet, no.
In which case we'll need to create
an enum just with all the names.
Yeah, that'll do. Where do we call this? Okay, let's do it here. List of strings, texture names, list of elements. There might be a way to get all of this.
To copy this from the file list, isn't it?
Yeah. Actually,
but
that might actually work. Yep.
Oh yeah, indeed.
That's perfect.
Okay, I learned again something new.
How do I get it inside a string?
Maybe if you do double quote and then copy it. Yeah, almost.
Almost. It's a single string now. But if we get this and then split it.
Or just find replace on \n and the plus and make it a comma, something like that.
Well, I can easily get rid of those things, right? So, yep. So that's done. And now replace plus with comma. Yeah, indeed. Perfect.
Okay.
Brilliant. That probably took the same amount of time than just typing it out, but...
And again, this Save Actions plugin would align this all for you and remove all these spaces. So again, sometime you can win.
To do. What's it called? Save
Actions plugin.
Okay. I'm going to check it out at some point.
Yeah.
So, check texture names. We got them. Now just pick a random one. And that we can do. There is fxgl math.random. Which will do it for us. That's not too bad.
No, I don't know how he came up with the smileys, by the way. But
I mean, it works as an idea.
Yeah.
They're not rotated correctly. They always point in the same direction. I think we can easily fix that. Because I remember building something like auto rotate component or something with new auto rotation component. Yeah, that's looking weird.
Aren't they rotating on the corner of the
Yeah, I
image
think there's
instead
something wrong
of
with
the middle? So the rotation
rotation
point should
pivot
probably
point.
be the center of the image.
Yeah, in which case we do need a bounding box. And then this thing should rotate. Yeah, let's see. Because now they've got the bounding box. Yeah, they rotate correctly now, but the angle. Well, I don't know what the angle actually should be. They're.
Yeah, if they go to the right, they are okay.
Because there is no sort of direction here. I'm looking at this emoji. Like, how do you know which way you should rotate? Because by default, it starts at 0 degrees. So it thinks that this is 0 degrees, and then it rotates accordingly. But regardless, they rotate now, and that is doable.
Yeah. Now we still need to detect when we touch the edges.
And then we just die?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. Well, that should be just doable inside here, right? In this update, because that's head is the only thing that matters, I guess. Because if the head collides, because everything else moves along the path of the head.
Yeah.
So after we've moved, let's check. Check for bounds. If entity get x is less than 0, we die. And then do this 4 times. Plus 32, again, magic number needs to be extracted. Plus 32 equals get application width greater or no, wait, because that would put it. Well, I don't think we need 32.
Big, it should be bigger, I guess, because you can go up till the border, but not.
So
across.
It's when x goes beyond. That's when we should die.
Yeah.
So we don't actually need to check for the side. This is just y, and this is also y when it's greater or equal application height. So when we die, what happens?
One thing is we have a scores value already, and a lives value, I think.
Yep.
So we can decrement the lives and start over again on position 0, something like that.
So we can increment lives by -1. If this is called that, let me check.
So,
well, we don't need these ones, so we'll get rid of that. Yep, it's called lives.
Yep.
So lives -1. Get rid of body parts apart from the first one.
Yep.
So body parts clear, and then body parts add the head back again, and then place the entity at position 0, 0.
Yep.
And then set going right.
And we can also add the score somewhere here where we add an element is that we increment the score
right.
with
When we grow, we should increase
grow.
score
Yeah,
by what?
by one.
+1?
Yeah.
And I think the variables are already bound to the UI. Is that right? Yep. The score
Yep.
and lives should update accordingly. Now let's crash.
Okay, the snake is cleared. That's okay.
I forgot to remove the other bits.
Yep.
Yeah, so when we do this, this will actually stay there. That's a feature, that's not a bug.
Yeah, you cannot touch the elements now.
Exactly.
Yeah, maybe we can just leave them. And if you touch them, again, you lose a life.
Yeah, but we have to collision detection
Yeah.
against them. Collision check against them. Right, so that's that. I think we can add one last thing and we can call it a day.
Yeah.
What should we do? Get rid of those things.
Yeah. So
Body
the type
parts
part.
clear.
Yeah. I think before the clear, you need to do it.
Yeah. Body parts, stream, skip the first one, and then for each entity, remove from world. That will clean up body parts apart from head. Yep, okay. That works fine.
Yes, indeed.
And then sometime in the future, we might actually introduce food, because we don't have food yet.
And if we get food, we can get extra points and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, well, the player needs to be able to grow the snake somehow. Usually it's the food.
Yeah.
And then we might even turn this into a multiplayer game.
Yeah, you did this hack. Yeah, this developer hack. Okay.
Yeah, the F button.
Yeah. And I have another thing for the next time, and it's let me show you something for the camera. I ordered this arcade kit. So
okay, so it's a controller for the snake.
It's a controller. It's a joystick with just 4 touch buttons. So if you click it, you hear the clicks, I think. And I have these other buttons, and they are just buttons. And of course, I have a Raspberry Pi.
Yeah. What would we do without a Raspberry Pi? That's the driver for the whole thing, right?
Yes, indeed. And it's stacked on top. There is a Pi-Cate head, so it doesn't do much. It's just a simple thing to connect all these wires to it.
Well, in which case, the next time we do this, we might switch our roles. You'll be doing the coding.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
And actually, it's not that complicated because you already have this, and we have these move functions.
Yeah. So all you need to do is get the hardware to report something that gets
same
into
thing, which
here.
is here your key codes. So and we can keep the key codes, of course, because we want to test this on PC, for instance, before we put it on a Raspberry Pi. And on the Raspberry Pi, we have the joystick events to do
and
the
then
same.
This is something that you'll like, because that will be really useful. You can mock key presses. In which case, you don't even need to change any of this code. You just get your hardware data and then say mock key press, key code.
Oh, wow, this is great indeed. So
and then the whole thing will just work.
Yeah, because for Java on the Raspberry Pi, we have the Pi4j library, and we can configure one of these wires as being a digital input and have a listener attached to it. So each time that you press or close the electronic connection there, you have an event. And then in this event, we can indeed use this mock. Yeah, that's a very nice approach. I didn't know it. Okay.
Cool. We'll do it next time then.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to wrap up. Thanks the audience for watching, and we are going to be continuing it next time.
Okay.
Thanks
And
for
my
watching.
son
I'll
will
see you
be,
guys later.
and my
Bye-bye,
son will be
Frank.
very happy with the result already. Thanks a lot.
That's perfect.
Okay.